Well, hello everyone and welcome to week 60 and 61 of my life here in New Zealand as an L3 CTS cadet pilot. In this week's, well, 2 weeks worth of roundup, I'm going to be talking about the 3 asymmetric flights that I've done. Roll titles. So no video last week, and that was because the weather last week was absolutely atrocious and no flying went on. So basically nothing to talk about regarding week number 60. 61 however, we did 3 asymmetric twin star flights. And it's basically getting us used to operating a 2-engine aircraft with 1 engine inoperative, so an engine failure or an engine fire. And basically we go up on that first twin star asymmetric flight. My particular one, we went out to the eastern training area. I think it was at like 4,000 feet for that one. And it's basically go out, the instructor will demonstrate how the procedure works, so you have to control, identify and shut down the correct engine. Obviously when you first do this, you don't actually shut the engine down. The instructor will usually just get the checklist, cover up the throttles so you can't see him, and then he'll just pull one of the throttles back, simulating asymmetric thrust that you would normally get with an actual engine failure. So they demonstrate it first. Basically, the key thing is with an engine failure is make sure you identify the correct engine that has failed and give it a boot full of rudder in the opposite direction, because if you don't get the rudder in fairly quickly, you're going to end up in a spiral dive operating on one engine very quickly. Also in this first lesson, we actually do shut down one of the engines. So we actually do turn the engine master off on one of the engines, and you do look out the window and go, well, that doesn't look right, the prop's not going around and it's completely stationary. It's the weirdest feeling looking out the window and seeing one of your engines has stopped, but you get used to it. And the reason why we actually do physically shut an engine down is to prove that the aircraft does handle very similarly with one engine at idle and one at a high power setting. Speaking of that, we actually do talk about how the aircraft performs at different speeds, attitudes, thrust settings, because it makes an enormous difference on how the aircraft performs. For example, if your speed is very low, then the asymmetric thrust is going to be, well, the asymmetric component is going to be very high on asymmetric thrust. Didn't really make much sense that. I'm going to try and rework that. So basically, if you've got low speed, your rudder's got less authority, so you need more of it to counteract the engine shutdown. That sounds better. What I was going on about then, before it all went a bit wrong, if you have a high power setting on one engine and the other one is shut down, then that's when you get high yawing moments because of asymmetric thrust. If you feel like you're going to lose control in that occasion, then you just close both throttles and you can regain control that way. But on our second asymmetric lesson, we basically simulate circuit operations, but not actually at an airfield. So again, out in the eastern training area, and we basically cover like engine failure after takeoff, how to fly the circuit with one engine operative, how do you prioritise your checks because you haven't always got time to do them all, and also how to do an asymmetric approach and inevitably coming to land on one engine. Now on this particular day the weather was not particularly great, and for us to actually physically shut an engine down we have to be a minimum of 3,000 feet. Unfortunately out in the training area we could only get 2,800, so we couldn't physically shut the engine down here, but we looked to the north up towards the Coromandel Peninsula, and there was actually a clearing up in between Coromandel and Auckland, so we ended up flying a very long way from Houghton, but we got up here, got up to 3,000 feet and was able to perform, I think it was 2 engine shutdowns, so I did one on the left and then I did one on the right, obviously restarting the left one before even considering shutting down the right one. But then coming back into Houghton, we couldn't actually come in through a normal arrival procedure. either through Scotson's Valley or the Carapera Lake, because there was some particularly heavy rain around here, so there was no way we was going to come back that way VFR. So basically we ended up calling on pretty much a 15-mile final, straight in approach, runway 18, so that was good fun. And we also made that landing with simulated asymmetric thrust, so one of the thrust levers was closed the whole way down the approach. Now, the final asymmetrics lesson is basically everything I've just talked about, but this time we're going to be actually in the circuit. It's a 1.2 hour flight and it is exhausting. You're operating at very low speeds, you're in a high pressure environment for the whole time. So you're going to basically, long story short, don't skip leg day, because you pretty much need full rudder deflection on engine failure on takeoff and on final approach. Hardest thing about an asymmetric landing is transitioning from having one engine at a very high power setting and the other one pretty much shut down, so idle, to, as you get into landing flare, you're going to be closing both the throttles. So you're going to go from asymmetric thrust on one side to asymmetric drag during the landing. So basically you're going to go from applying rudder in one direction to applying rudder in the completely opposite direction. It takes a bit of getting used to, but if you nail your airspeed, it's actually quite a mundane procedure. So, me personally, the thing that I found the hardest was just getting every single procedure in within one circuit. Sometimes it wasn't physically possible to complete all of the checks, especially if air traffic control asks you to turn a short final. So, I also did a sim this week, but I'm going to try and talk about the sims more in one episode. So, I'm going to save that for the next episode. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching the video. Feel free to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anyone who you feel might benefit from this series. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take it easy. Bye bye.